Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today for our webinar, Retail's $9.2 trillion AI Revolution. My name is Greg Busick from IHL. It's good to be seen, I guess. Can't see you guys, but wish I could. And go ahead, who's this other good looking guy?
This is Lee. Good to see you guys. Good to be with you today.
All right. But we are going to turn off our cameras because we do better when the cameras are not on there. So we'll turn off our cameras and get started. First of all, we want to thank you for joining, but also thank our sponsors for making this content available for you. Agilence, Diebold Nixdorf, and Fortinet, thank you for making this possible, and basically for allowing me to spend the last 2.5 months diving into this forecast and diving into AI, generative AI, and all things there, and level set on some key terms. So AI and machine learning has been out for a while. This is a technology that requires lots of training on your specific data. It has to be clean data. It has to be tagged data as to what it is. And there's a lot of hit or miss, but there's some tremendous benefits that we're already seeing as a result of that. And I firmly believe the people that are going to win in the future are the people that have done that hard work of cleaning that data. Generative AI is something that creates new content. So otherwise it sounds like a person. The data still needs to be clean. There are human trainers that are part of that process on the back end of it to allow it to generate things there. But it is subject to hallucinations and making up data there. But it is extremely powerful, and we're going to show you examples of that, and where the big growth is going to happen in the next 7 years is in generative AI. Artificial general intelligence is the where generative AI sounds like a person. Artificial general intelligence is a level of AI where the systems can reason like a person. And this is one of those things where we think it's probably still 2 to 3 years before we get to that point. There's another level beyond that, which is sentient AI, that we're not going to talk about, but that is the level where it thinks it's a person. It doesn't just think like a person, it thinks like that it is a person. And we're not going to reference that in our technology here because we still think that's many years away from having that ability. Large language model, that's where ChatGPT and Bard, however you want to say it, from Google, where they started. Okay, and that's a large language models, which means it's all about the written word, and it learns and it puts things together based on the written word. These are increasingly becoming multimodal, which means it does languages and graphics, and it can create text to video, text to graphics. There are some tools that are absolutely mind-blowing. I'm going to go through a couple. I'm going to share some other ones with you as well that are just insane when you look at things here. So let's talk about our model and what we did. And I know Lee's popped up if you want more information on the model and how to get it, just how we went about doing it. So we leveraged our IT spend model as a base of categories from which to look at what are the benefits or what is the impact of AI. And we looked at that by segment, by region of the world. And then we went through first down the financial statement. So we wanted to look at sales, gross margins, and SG&A. And that's how we went through and we looked at the impact by year, by whether it's traditional AI, generative AI, or artificial general intelligence, which you can see here in this example is 0 right now, because we don't think 2025-26 is when we'll start seeing some impact from that. So that's at the top level. Now, once again, we are talking about financial impact, not necessarily increases in sales. And the reason for that is we're not naive enough to think that if a Walmart or a Target or somebody gets incredible benefits in sales and gross margins by using AI, that they're not going to lower prices there to eliminate competition. That has been done in the past, and as a result, we're talking about impact here because we can't predict organizational behavior in terms of what they'll do with that savings. Whether they hire fewer people, whether they expand, whether they wipe out a customer. We didn't try to address that piece of it. What we'll tell you is that some people are further along much further along in the AI process, and they're going to see much bigger benefits as a result of that. I kind of equate this to trying to get across Midtown. There are some people, if the toll gate to LaGuardia, the gate before you get on the Long Island Expressway, where they have the toll booth, it gets you out onto the highway there at a fast speed, and some could argue you turn that into the Autobahn there for speed. There are others that are stuck in traffic on 8th or 9th Avenue trying to get across town in bumper to bumper traffic because they've not done the clean work on the data. And that clean work on the data is absolutely critical to getting the rocket ship benefits that you get from AI. The next way we looked at it by tiers and size of retailers, using a tier 1 of over $1 billion, tier 2 $250 to $1 billion, and then under $250 million. We wanted to look at the differences there, and we'll talk about that. Next, finally, we went into the detailed look at the individual technology and solution types involved, and we looked at the impact there. We gave a rating to each area based on our knowledge of the technology and the impact to that individual area of that generative AI and AI can add from where it is already. And we walked through that detail. So we have over 120 categories of impact, 12 segments, 4 regions, and 8 years of data in the model that we went through here. So that's the background. So once again, as we mentioned, in the US in particular, we've seen massive growth, and we've done that with fewer workers. We increased the total by sales of India and the UK in those years. Next battleground is on the AI stuff. This is a chart that if you've followed IHL before, you've seen many times, that we have now extended that out with the AI piece of things. We already were talking about this before on the AI and machine learning on store operational issues before ChatGPT and generative AI came out. But let's face it, that was a Gutenberg moment. That is the AOL moment on the internet. That's the last time I've been wowed to the level that I've been wowed there with this technology. So whether or not it's the impact of the internet or even to the level of what a barcode meant to retail, it's a massive opportunity here. So how big? We're estimating that over the next 7 years, up to $9.2 trillion, actually over $9.2 trillion in economic impact. And this might be low. And I'll explain as we go through why I think this may be low for impact. There's a lot of work that has to be done, but you can't really overstate what this is. And I feel like I'm a crypto bro here talking about it. I am very bullish on the potential for AI when you have clean data and you do it correctly. It is massive improvements, between 5 and 100 times improvement of speed on things when you do that. So where do we see things from 2023, where we are today, and the impacts versus where we'll be in 2029? The vast majority, over 91% of the benefits today, are coming from those people that did the hard work, and they're working with traditional AI and machine learning and generative AI. You think things like computer-aided ordering right now, when it's deployed into grocery stores, these stores are seeing between 3 and 9% increase in sales that are occurring because the computer is placing the orders and looking at the forecast there. We're seeing that drive into things that were direct store delivery and disrupting the Coca-Colas and the Mondelez and those folks that have traditionally stocked the shelves themselves there. What has happened in a lot of retailers is the shelves are full, but they're not according to plan. So you have too many rows of strawberry ice cream and not enough of vanilla ice cream, which is according to the plan. Well, what happens when somebody comes in for vanilla ice cream and can't find it? Well, the shelf looks full, but it's wrong. And so we're seeing computer-aided ordering being mandated into those categories, to where, no, we're gonna judge you according to plan, not according to what's on the shelf there, and thus seeing dramatic increases there. But by 2029, we firmly believe that the vast majority of the incremental benefits each year are going to be coming from generative AI added on top of the traditional AI ML, or operating on its own. And then we will also see benefits from the artificial general intelligence there as well by that point in time. Cumulative, it almost is a wash between traditional AI and ML and generative AI, even though traditional AI ML has a lot more head start there. So let's look at some more data and kind of how we look at it. So the blue line is sort of a trend line of overall impact over year. The orange line is traditional AI, machine learning. You start to see that start to taper out and slow down incrementally as we get to 2025, 26. The generative AI, though, expanding and exploding higher as we get later in the decade. And the artificial general intelligence, not really going to see much in the way of benefit, start maybe in 2026 going on. That's kind of our forecast for that. Now let's walk through, okay, first segments here. Okay, so what are the segments that are best positioned right now to dominate the economic benefits through 2029? And those are pure play e-commerce companies. The companies that don't have stores, that only have one channel of data, and they have the benefit of having data that of tracking people across the web, as well as their own data. They've got data that's clean. They're not worried so much about hey, shared. We got shared taste, shared loyalty cards, shared everything there. It's not as big a deal there in that sector. Whereas, for instance, my Walgreens card is under my wife's name. So when I go get Excedrin medicine there and pick up a chocolate bar, I get spit out PMS coupons when I shop there because we have a shared card there. However, my Kroger card is mine. And so my wife, when she goes there, she gets stuff that is mostly there because my son and I use that card there. She gets things that are targeted more towards male there. Pure Play doesn't have that as much. So in grocery is the next biggest section, in hypermarkets as well, 21% of the total benefits. The main things here is the fact that these are just huge segments. They're just huge segments. They're also UPC based, and I think that's important here as well, as they're difficult segments by all means because of the supply chain and fresh and spoilage and all that sort of stuff. However, from a systems standpoint, it's not as complex as you're dealing with in fashion, where you add size and color to the equation for things. The last major segment we see dominating things is going to be hard goods, and specifically the DIY space and hard goods and electronic space. We think where the biggest benefits from AI are going to be, mainly because of the types of companies that are involved there, and less more concentrated market share in the larger players that are involved there, which leaves about 25% of the benefit for the other 8 segments, retail segments. Still huge numbers, but in comparison, this favors these other, AI favors these larger types of fast-moving consumer goods side of the business. As we break it out by the line of business category, the largest carry of benefit we are projecting to be merchandising and supply chain, about 26% of the total benefit there. The collaboration, management, IT, the SG&A functions being the second biggest, tied with e-commerce, and then store management and execution being next, and then infrastructure and BI analytics being the categories there. Now, it's not exactly these numbers, but these are the rough numbers that we see impacting of things as we go forward. So let's talk about things by region. The largest area we see impact here is Asia. Mainly Asia has surpassed North America as the largest region now in terms of total sales. The retail sales, they are also far more aligned with groceries in the segments that we're talking about. Hypermarkets, groceries being the preponderance of their business in Asia. Fast growing economies as compared to other sectors, as well as the fact that it's just much larger. And then finally, the last piece being less regulation. There's going to be less regulation related to generative AI, how it can be used, and where it will be used than any other sector. North America, we're going to see regulations there. Congress is trying to put regulations in for the U.S. There, but it's not going to be to the same level of Europe. Europe will have the highest regulatory environment, along with Brazil probably, there that we're seeing related to AI right now. As we already saw, Italy already banned ChatGPT for about a month and a half, looking at things. And those slowdowns in this kind of race is a major, major challenge as we go forward. This is a technology, AI is a technology where the rich get richer. If you followed IHL, you know that we said that COVID and essential, non-essential retailers around the world was the single biggest transfer of wealth from essential to non-essential, from non-essential retail to essential retailer, and from small to large. We lost 400,000 small retailers due to those government denotations of essential versus non-essential. We expect the challenge here to be even bigger. We expect that 72% of the cumulative AI economic benefits are going to go to large retailers. And the reason for that is they've had data scientists. They've been able to start the process of cleaning the data there. At one point, Walmart was hiring more data scientists than Google. Prior to the pandemic. That hard work that's required to clean the data and make it available favors the large retailers. Only 13% of the benefit will go to smaller retailers under 100 million in size. The reason we say that is because there's just too much churn, and there's too many retailers that have to get the benefits. A single small retailer could get a 10 or 100% improvement or impact from AI. However, they're so small in comparison to a Home Depot, for instance. A 0.01% impact there would still be greater than 100% impact for a small retailer. So it favors the large retailers going forward. So when we look at it by tier, you just see it absolutely dominated by tier 1. And a little bit in tier 2 and less in tier 3, but we're still talking over $1 trillion of benefits. So it is a huge jump, and there are opportunities there. Now let's look at sales. We believe that 54% of the economic benefits are going to be related to sales, and that's inclusive of all types of AI. And the reason we say that is so much of generative AI can be done with preferences. There. So you're going to start getting personalization and hyper personalization, where the commercial comes on the screen or the ad pops up and it's somebody that looks like me, talks like me, drives the same kind of car as I do, drinks the same kind of beverage, same family look and feel, all of those things to be able to get to greater sales. So literally we're talking about 1 to 2 increases in sales, and all of a sudden we're talking top line. That's a huge number. So when we look at the sales forecast here, we start seeing that the massive growth originally is going to be with the traditional AI and machine learning, where it's going on right now, and those are seeing the results. Next, we're talking about it for the generative AI, and I've got to move fast if I'm going to share examples for you. So I'm going to move forward there. But really, what's the value of 1 to 2 more additional sales per year per customer? When you start looking at some of these tools and the personalized promotions, you can see the sales impact. Where does generative AI fit in with all this? So generative AI, we expect is going to bring $4.4 trillion in economic benefits, 51% of those benefits in sales, 20% in gross margins, and about 29% in SG&A. And we'll go through those as we go forward here. So let's talk about gross margin impact. This is where we are well along with what we're doing with traditional AI and machine learning. And it's one of the lowest impacts that we're seeing for generative AI going forward. This is about supply chain, optimizing the supply chain. So we see some generative AI benefits there, but it's not the big huge thing. What we do see is overall generative AI in total is going to be the dominant by 2029, but not necessarily in the near future. Where you're going to see benefits is route logistics and trucks being full, and optimizing things related to those inefficiencies that are creating basically increased cost that don't have to be there. And generative AI is going to be able to help that tremendously doing those supply chain. But that's still down the line. The vast majority of benefits right now are going to be on the traditional AI and machine learning. So these are some of the areas for general merchandise impact. I'm going to go fast here. The biggest area for generative AI impact is going to be with the sales and general administrative functions. I believe our forecast may be low. I just could not bring myself to say I think SG&A is going to drop in half. But my gut tells me that the way these tools are impacting the knowledge worker, that the incredible improvements that can be made are going to dramatically reduce the cost on an SG&A standpoint, the sales and general administrative cost within an organization. And the traditional AI machine learning is far less impact on this side of things. So what I want to do is I'm going to share a video and take a break speaking that I pre-recorded to show you some examples just to show off this technology, to show you the power of generative AI that'll put the forecast a little bit more in context when you see the types of things that generative AI can do beyond just being a replacement for search engines. So first of all, what's really important when you're dealing with ChatGPT, Bard, or any of these other generative AI services is there are three major things that you've got to give it to eliminate hallucinations. Number one, you've got to give it a persona. So in this case, we're saying function as an expert software product manager for the retail industry. This example is something many on the call will probably have to deal with. And we're going to literally get from a prompt to a business plan in less than 5 minutes. So the next thing is you want to add the context, the relative context of what you're looking for. This greatly narrows things down even further, and it tells the system exactly what you want to include or not include in the response. And then finally, you have to give it the output instructions for what you want. So in this case, we're asking it to create an outline with titles and bullet points that will basically create a business plan for this new software tool. So when we take this and we dump it into ChatGPT, it comes in as something like this, as a big prompt. And then from here, in about 5 or 6 seconds, it generates the detailed outline for the PowerPoint, or excuse me, for the business plan. And then from that, we tell it to convert this to HTML code. And when you do that, it actually creates an HTML code for you that you copy into an editor. And then from there, you're able to add it into a Word file. So what you end up with is a file that can be opened in Word that you save as a docx file, save it up to Word Online, and you end up with a file like this. Now, the outline is here. You can ask further questions. You can build this out, but the outlines with the headings and all the things are in place here. Now, this is where the magic happens and saves a ton of time. You come in and you say export to a PowerPoint, and it gives you options. And I've already done this, so I'm going to show you some options here, but I've already had this output. And in less than 5 minutes, you have an entire PowerPoint business plan of your SaaS software pricing tool. So here we talked about the platform compatibility, being agnostic in the cloud. We talked about vendors. Here, you even have with the designer function there that's in place, you can actually have it as well go into bring in the logos for each of these players and do that. We've got our pricing strategy there, etc., for all of these different things. So in less than 5 minutes, you can go from idea to business plan in PowerPoint, which is a massive savings of time that would take a day or more for somebody to do normally through that process. Now, the second one is the ability to add your own content up into a box where this is your content and it can be shared. So I uploaded, and this is a product called My Ask AI. I uploaded 4 IHL documents. That these include things like a web page where I've got a whole bunch of stuff that we did for our inventory system for grocery there, where we looked at U.S. households and that had Amazon, et cetera. And that's going to be my example here. But we also had our returns report up there, et cetera. And it even prompts you for particular questions based on the content that you added. So I added a total of 4 documents. What I'm asking it to do now is to How many US households have Amazon Prime, and how does that change by income is my question. So when I click on that, it's now going to go through my content and pull that up. So you see the output that comes from our particular documents that are there. This can be a tremendous improvement for customer service people, for anything, any content you want to do for training, for anybody, that you can get the pure content and the expertise up there with little to no cost, but that you can have somebody acting as an expert in that particular field through that knowledge. Now, I'm going to add that link here to the video here, so you can just see on the left side, if you want to have access to this particular example on My Ask AI, you can query that yourself through the link that I just put on the screen. Now, the third one, we're going to switch over to Chrome, because this is a Chrome add-on called AI PRM. And there's a series of these tools that make content development extremely fast. So in one line, you can have it do a complete blog. So it's funny. I did this one and I actually spelt the word importance wrong, but in one sentence, it ended up creating this entire blog here with frequently asked questions regarding things. So as you go through there, this is optimized for search optimization already. You have a first draft that's already complete for that. Now, I only gave it one line of context, so the end result is something that's rather generic. However, when we looked at our business plan example, and I did the same thing with our detail prompt and added that in here. Okay, so here's what I wrote in there. Now, all of a sudden, it has now created an entire article based on that and what's going on with our details about our pricing structure there. So very little effort to tremendous amount of content that comes out of that. So those are just 3 examples. We've got many more in the tools that we're going to share here. And I just hope you see the power of generative AI and how that can be used. And these are just 3 of millions of examples for how this could be used. All right. I hope that gave you a wow moment there. And I'm gonna turn the camera back off so I could focus there. So you see, there's a couple handouts. I added the list of tools that I recommend you go through there. Also, the business plan from the video is there, and you can test the IHL link, and those will all be in things there, and those links are in those tools. I want to highlight a couple of them real quick. The My Ask AI and AI PRM, those are 2 that were shown during that thing. Web ChatGPT is an add-on for ChatGPT that adds web search. Fireflies is one that takes notes for your meetings there that becomes searchable. That you can use. That is going to become, all of those functions are going to be sort of native in Copilot, as well as that business plan example I showed you, which is coming out, I think, in June. I think they mentioned yesterday. We'll find out more details, but they announced that yesterday. Tango creates literally how-to guides. It basically records what you do, so it creates a how-to guide of anything on your computer screen. NVIDIA Broadcast corrects your eyes so you can read from a script and do a video, and it will actually correct your eyes so that you're looking directly at the screen. Luma Labs has a 3D rendering of items that you can take a picture of something, it turns it into a 3D object, then you can take it and put it anywhere else in a room, in a different place, in your backyard. What would this item look like there? Reimagine Home. You can take a picture of your kitchen or your living room and ask it to reimagine that space based on the dimensions of what it took to do the decorating. These are things that are, Home Depot and these guys are trying to do that in their stores. This is on your cell phone. You just hold it up and say, give me some ideas about how I can redo this space. The 2 that are just absolutely mind-boggling to me, one is called Flawless. So I could take a video of this webinar, and if I wanted to translate it into Mandarin, it would do it, and it would change my mouth to make it look like I'm speaking Mandarin. And I have no clue about Mandarin. That is pretty amazing technologies to expand the reach of different tools. And then the one that is really mind blowing, if you've not looked it up yet, look up Dragon. It's supposed to come out in June for pictures. It's basically Adobe Photoshop on steroids, but extremely simple. So almost to like an Apple level of simplicity added to editing of images. Where I don't even want to get into it. It's so mind blowing. You got to take a look at it. So when you start digging into this, it is absolutely mind blowing to think about the possibilities. When I typically show these examples to people, they don't sleep for 3 or 4 days starting to think through all of the different ways this can transform their business and what they do there. We really believe that generative AI, particularly on the knowledge worker, is going to have a 5 to 100 times more efficiency by 2029 there. I'll just give you some examples here, everything from streamlining benefits, improved communications, etc. here. This is where we believe AI will shine the brightest, will be in the SG&A. The areas where we expect to see the biggest impacts quickly in generative AI and AI ML right now are places where the hard work has already been done and the things are in momentum already. And that's prescriptive analytics, particularly in store performance, merchandising, category management, loss preventions, and promotion and pricing, those being the big areas where we're seeing big investments right now, where this can have the largest impact on things. Loss prevention is huge, organized retail crime, all of that stuff here. The analytics around that are the biggest area of growth. So we talk about fastest growing retailers and highest profit retailers. Fastest growing retailers, they grew their business 15% or more in 2022. Highest profit retailers were ones that grew their profits 15% or more in 2022. They are rapidly going to prescriptive analytics for LP and for loss prevention technologies. The risks, we can't leave without talking about risks here. And we're literally talking about job losses and changes to a certain degree. But I really firmly believe we have to do more with less. For retail to grow, after we've had this massive growth, we have to do more with less people. So I think it's going to be more about job change than it is going to be about job losses. At some point, 15, 20 years, that's going to change. But the internet created more jobs than it took. The mobile phone created more jobs than it took. The barcode created more jobs than it took. I really believe AI is that kind of technology, but it does have the opportunity when it gets to AGI to potentially take jobs away. Certainly, all the press is going to be out there about weaponization, and that's going to be one of the areas where you're going to have all these regulations are going to be put in place. I will tell you personally, I believe hyper-personalization, which retail is going to be a bigger part of that, is going to be a bigger threat because there will be no regulation around it. But it will seem creepy to people. And I think that's one of the key risks is the loss of authenticity as a brand and who you are, because we're trying to customize it to be all things to all people there. You have hallucinations if you have bad data. And that's why it's so important to you to give it a persona, give it context, and tell it exactly what you want. Otherwise, like the Wharton professor said, it's a intern that lies a little bit. There, but if you give it those contacts and those guardrails, it's really phenomenal in what you can do. Next thing, seeing is not believing. We've had this thing in our world, seeing is believing. Forget about that. You can't trust anything that you see anymore. Fakes, deep fakes, everything is going to be a massive, massive problems. We think we had division with political stuff. That stuff is child's play compared to what's the opportunity is. So you can't trust what you see there. That's why, once again, I think authenticity will be the key brand thing there that's going to drive people to retailers in many ways and seek that out. It's still based on people, and that's why we are real big proponents of our friends at TideRise, that clean data, that tag data there that actually helps from a community standpoint of building up a community as well. TideRise.io is the site, but you need people. Even ChatGPT was trained by people, as to what's there. And then finally, there are risks we don't even know about yet. We think we know what the risks are. We don't even know about them. We are going so fast in this area. There were photo influencers that said, hey, AI photography is years away. They said that in January, and in March they came back and said we were so wrong related to that. Like I said, there are risks we don't even know about yet, and this is a technology that's moving way faster. So our best quotes, I talked about the Wharton professor there. I like this one from Satya, where Steve Jobs said computers were like a bike for the mind. AI is like a steam engine for the mind there. And then my friend Ricardo Belmar at Microsoft here, put him on this list here. He goes, this may be the retail's biggest disruptive change since the barcode there. So once again, that's it. We're going to turn our cameras on, do some Q&A. We'll go past the hour for those that want to stay there. And we just thank you for your attention. I'm going to add a couple more things.